We earlier said that we will provide an update in the middle of June after assessing the situation in the first 2 weeks of June through this period of phase one. And as Minister Gunn had shared earlier, we have looked at the situation carefully. The infection is under control throughout this period, and therefore we now are able to enter into phase two from Friday onwards, basically after 18th of June 2359. So from this Friday onwards, we will be in phase two. The way to think about phase two is as follows. Unlike phase one, where we still had quite a number of restrictions in place, in phase one, the default setting was many things remain closed and we only selectively allowed certain things to resume activities in order to manage the risk. Phase two is different. Phase two, the default will be most activities will resume and open, and only a small exception will be left to be done later. So what will open in phase two? Essentially, retail businesses may reopen their physical outlets. F&B, dine-in will be allowed to resume, subject to liquor sales and consumption ceasing at 22:30 hours. We will not allow live music and television and video screenings in F&B outlets at this stage. So the F&B dining is permitted in groups of 5. You go and eat, but don't linger around too much, and no music, no video or TV screening, because we do not want that noise around the environment causing people to speak more loudly than they need to, spreading droplets while they eat, or to linger around for longer than necessary. Besides these, retail shopping malls will be open as well, subject to capacity limits. Personal health and wellness, home-based services will be allowed to resume. Registered clubs and societies can operate at their registered premises. Tuition, private enrichment classes can resume, with the exception of singing or voice training classes at this time. Again, because it is a higher risk activity, so we are not allowing the classes that involve singing or voice training. All other healthcare services, including elder care services in the community, individual health screening, aesthetic services will resume. Face-to-face visitations at residential facilities for the elderly will also resume with precautionary measures in place. Sports, parks, public facilities will be open. This include playgrounds, beaches, lawns and fields, swimming complexes, sports halls, gyms, fitness studios, function rooms, and this would apply not only to public facilities, but similar facilities in private settings such as condominiums and country clubs. So we will put out the full list of businesses that are allowed to operate on the MTI website, and businesses who are in this list will not need to apply for an exemption come the effective date, with effect from the effective date. Essentially, the list will cover quite a wide range, and so the vast majority of businesses we expect will be able to reopen, but with the key condition that safe distancing measures must be in place, and we try to simplify this as much as possible. We say that individuals must maintain the safe distance of 1 meter, and each time there is a group of people coming out at the same time, it must not be more than 5 persons. So it's a 1 meter, 5 persons rule. Right? Other than that, many of these businesses will be allowed to reopen. There will be some exceptions, and as I've described, we've tried to keep the exceptions list small, but there will be some small number of activities that will take a bit more time and will not be able to restart immediately at the beginning of phase two. These are activities which we have highlighted before. They are activities involving large numbers of people that are likely to come into close contact, often in enclosed spaces or for prolonged periods of time. And our experience in Singapore and also overseas experience has shown that in such settings, they are of higher risk, and they could result in large clusters forming. So these are your super spreader events, if you will. Right? And the activities and settings include religious congregations, your large venues like libraries, museums, large-scale events and venues including conferences, exhibitions, concerts, trade fairs, as well as entertainment venues like bars, nightclubs, karaoke, outlets, cinemas, theaters, as well as indoor and outdoor attractions. So these will take a bit more time. The government agencies are continuing to engage the relevant businesses and organizations on the safe management measures that would be needed for these specific activities and settings. And subject to these safe management precautions and requirements being put in place, at a later date, we will be able to allow these to resume progressively over time, but not at the start of phase 2, because we still need time to engage all of these businesses and organizations and ensure that the appropriate measures are put in place. So there are also specific rules that we are putting in place for specific settings and events. For example, for weddings, we are allowing for added flexibility, where wedding solemnizations at home or at the ROM or ROMM may take place with up to 10 persons, excluding the solemnizer. And if it's at other venues, they may take place with up to 20 persons. For wakes and funerals, we are allowing up to 20 persons to be present at any one time. So these are the guidelines for the start of phase 2. It will allow many more activities to resume. And once again, as my colleagues, the Minister Gan and Professor Mark have highlighted, I want to appeal to all Singaporeans to be responsible in undertaking the activities that are permitted under phase 2. Do not treat phase 2 as a signal that we can all relax, we can all let our guard down, and we can now go out and do all our favorite activities. I think if we were to take that kind of a mindset and attitude, it will be very easy for phase 2 to end up with a surge in cases and potentially down the road the likelihood of having to reintroduce restrictions, which I don't think any one of us would like to see. But if we are responsible in upholding all the precautions and safe distancing measures that are required of us in phase 2, if we use the space and the activities that we now can undertake, if we take that responsibly, continue to, by all means, go out, but limit the number of contacts that we have to a small group, and take all the necessary measures, be disciplined, be vigilant, then phase 2 will allow us to resume some level of normalcy in our daily lives while continuing to keep COVID-19 at bay and continuing to control the infection. So that's something that we want to achieve. The government cannot do this alone through rules or through restrictions. All of us must do our part and work together to move towards phase 2 in a sustained and safe manner.